Cappy, do we have any new patrons?
Yes, we have Jet.
Jet, Mr. Garza, yes. And also, I think that someone special deserves a little special shout out.
Yeah, one of our Patreons, Just Jess, made it possible for me to get a ring light and a 4K webcam. So thank you, Jess.
I was just feasting my eyes upon this photo you sent over of your new setup, and I got to say, I'm jealous. Look at this. You're like living in the space age. This is like some sort of Chinese space program's shuttle or something. This is amazing.
Yeah. No, it's cool. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for the next stream.
Yeah, so many people have noticed that previously on the live streams for patreon.com/onlineleftist Tuesdays and Thursdays, where we stream anywhere from an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, the more uppity chat is, the shorter the stream, because they need commensurate punishment for their disobedience. But when they're good, it's longer. But during those streams, some people have pointed out that your box, your video earlier, it looked like a quote-unquote rectangular box of sorrow.
Oh yeah, no, it was atrocious. It looks like an Uvu call from 2010.
Okay, yes, it was definitely a 2G Skype call. And also, some people with people such as SOCOM noting that it looked like you were like SpongeBob when he had the suds.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah, apparently.
Yeah, and as a big SpongeBob fan, does that feel like some sort of betrayal that would be weaponized against you in such a way?
A little bit. I'm not offended though. I think I do love SpongeBob, so to be compared to SpongeBob is fine with me. Even when he's sick, I do get looking like that when I'm sick.
It's very interesting to have something weaponized like that against you, something so near and dear to you, which is almost like
something you love. Yeah,
almost what leftcoms do with Marxism.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And towards that line of dialogue, we have a prime candidate here, somebody that I had first encountered scrolling on TikTok, and I was just like, "What is this? Who is this ridiculous person?" This little Angloid degenerate named Khanifesto?
Yeah, I think it's Khanifesto.
Now, what is the deal with this? Is he Islamic? He doesn't seem that cool.
I'm not sure. Obviously they are immigrants to Britain, his family at least.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure though what he is.
Well, generally the KH designation means like Khan, that means like a Muslim, right? It's a naming
It very
convention.
well might, yeah.
Yeah.
I never he used to have another name. I used to be moots with him like 2 years ago. I used to comment on my stuff and like my stuff, but
back when you were a leftcom?
Well, I was never.
Oh, okay.
I was never. But a lot of people who became leftcoms were not leftcoms. It's this weird, we see this weird pipeline where people go from being Marxist-Leninists and then they might play around with Maoism for a bit, but usually they end up at Hoxhaism. And then from Hoxhaism, they're critiquing revisionism, and then they end up being leftcoms. That happens quite frequently.
Is it almost like the way that people get into like libertarian politics and then they start dabbling in like conspiracies and then maybe like anti-Semitic tropes, and then they sort of circle back from that? They sort of go, oh, okay, I was just sort of like mentally exploring and I'm sort of like, and then they sort of recess and go back to a more sustainable position. Is that like what the Hoxhaism is, or the leftcom is? Is that them sowing their wild oats and doing like the wild what if speculation?
Yeah, I mean, basically, right? They become almost fanatical dogmatists. What happens? The reason why they become Hoxhaists is because they don't like revisionism, right? And that seems logical. You be an anti-revisionist Marxist-Leninist because revisionism is bad. But they become very dogmatic, and then the only thing that's more dogmatic than a Hoxhaist is a leftcom.
It's very interesting. So there was a line of dialogue, there was some discourse in the chat where somebody asked about a specific party. Do you remember this? And I was like, I don't know about them. And they turned out to be anti-revisionist Hoxhaists.
Yeah, I forget what party that was.
I forget. APL? Something like that.
It was. Were we talking about?
It was a blogger. that which is like in a very small party, a YouTuber
I don't know.
or blogger.
I don't know if we were talking about like Espresso Stalinist.
Yes,
which is
it was
a
that guy.
blog I happen to like a lot.
I think it was that guy, yeah, who's a Hoxhaist or whatever. And
he's fucking weird. Some of his shit's good. The blog has some real good shit on it. Like, if you want to read about Stalin, that's the place to go. But
guys,
you don't want to read about much else.
Guys, what do Americans think of the APL? Vaughn is the only reason I've ever heard about the APL. Apparently his name is Vaughn.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So it's the APL. Yeah.
The American Party of Labor.
Okay.
That's okay. I've met when I got to see Grover Furr give a lecture. It was hosted by the All Marxist-Leninist Union at Rutgers University, which is connected to the APL. So I actually have an American Party of Labor packet that has like their party stuff in it and everything.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
And through that dialogue, so they say anti-revisionism. The reason I asked about that is the anti-revisionism. And it seems to me that anti-revisionism is fine. And that's something that we like. Although I would say that the better dialectician we are, the more quote-unquote revisionist we will seem to people who dogmatically treat Marx's words like a blueprint and less like a framework, right?
Yes.
So... But to me, branding yourself as anti-revisionist is similar to somebody who calls himself a free thinker. Now, we like free thinkers, but it's a red flag when someone says, I'm a free thinker. I identify as such, which means they usually ascribe to idiosyncratic beliefs.
Yes, I agree.
It's like, I do my own research. It's like, no, doing your own research is good. But leading every conversation with "I do my own research" is usually what like a conspiracy theorist that says.
Yeah,
it's indicative of other problems.
It's fucking weird, and I don't know if redundant is the word, but like, yeah, you're a Marxist-Leninist. You're supposed to be anti-revisionist. That's just how it fucking works. Like, I don't think dogmatism's an unfortunate thing because dogmatism, in a way, it's the fault of revisionism that dogmatism. That dogmatic Marxism became so popular because due to revisionism, these people have swung too far in the opposite direction and they've gone dogmatic, right?
Can you give me some examples of actual revisionism?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Khrushchev, for instance, is a great example of a revisionist, but he's not even like the arch revisionist. Like, de-Stalinization was bad, but again, maybe some people would disagree, but Khrushchev was still a communist, right? Like, I do believe Khrushchev believed in communism, and I think his foreign policy speaks for that. Khrushchev was also vehemently anti-US and anti-West. Someone like Gorbachev, however, was not a communist, right? That's a revisionist, right? He completely abandoned the core principles of Marxism, the principles that we take as universal. And it wasn't like a question of, our material conditions are like this, so we have to do something a little different. And it wasn't theoretically justified using Marxism or anything like that. The dude was a capitalist.
Okay, now with the context and the sort of normalization of a successful communist example of using some mechanisms that were previously relegated to capitalism, with the ascendancy of China, if we cast a retrospective eye on Khrushchev, could we see that he was trying to do some NEP type stuff?
So, I mean, maybe an argument could be made, but the thing is that the Deng Xiaoping coming to power and Khrushchev coming to power were really two completely different things when we start to look into them. Deng Xiaoping said, first of all, we should be clear, Deng Xiaoping hated Khrushchev. Fucking absolutely hated the dude. And Deng Xiaoping, said back then, he was quoted as saying, there are little Khrushchevs everywhere. They're everywhere. They're in the party. They're here. They're there. They're out to get us. He hated Khrushchev, right? So Deng was not a revisionist. Deng put forward the 4 cardinal principles, which were principles that have to be followed by Communist Party members. Things like not abandoning the socialist road, never abandoning the dictatorship of the proletariat, and stuff like that, right? So it was completely different. Deng said himself, "We will never do to Mao Zedong what Khrushchev did to Stalin."
What caused the Sino-Soviet split? Was it related to that?
The Sino-Soviet split occurred after the death of Stalin, and it was in large part due to the revisionism of the Soviet Union. There were definitely some other factors in there. It's honestly hard to pick a side on that because although, revisionism in the Soviet Union was bad, Mao started to have some really disastrous policies at the time. His 3 worlds theory, the idea of Soviet social imperialism and stuff like that, that wasn't great either. You know what I mean? So, but the Sino-Soviet split was like the worst thing that ever happened to the communist movement.
Do you think it's out of that fractionated international body of communism that weaselly little characters like Khanifesto first sprang into action? The large revisionist missteps that made everything seem like revisionist, like a cut and paste comment that you could give?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really sure. I think that as far back as people have been considering themselves Marxists, you run into people who treat Marxism like or treat Marx like he is a prophet sent down by God, and that Marx's works are holy scripture. I think that that's been something that you've seen since before. You know what I mean?
Now, I have to say, Cappy, in relation to other prophets, I don't know if any other prophet or religious figure's texts have been so prescient as Marx's. So if we were to evaluate the actual innate quality and predictive prowess of any of these texts, religious and or economic, I would have to say that Marx is akin to a prophet. So watch your mouth.
No, well, hey, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with you. Marx was a very profound thinker and a genius. I mean, the dude essentially invented sociology, right?
Yeah. Sociology is just communism spoken through like liberal nomenclature.
Yes, and a sociologist is just a communist with a gun.
Okay, so we have this guy here. He's at Khanifesto 161. So it's Khanifesto Anti-Fascist Action, right? That's effectively what his handle is. What do we know about this character other than he is a leftcom? I see you have a little bit of notes here.
Yeah, well, he considers himself to be a communizer, I think, which is just some leftcoms aren't communizers, but all communizers are leftcoms, right?
Right.
He doesn't support AES. He considers all AES actual existing socialist projects to be bourgeois, to be capitalist states. All the former proletarian revolutions were just bourgeois revolutions, right? Basically, he laughs at things like when us Marxist-Leninists talk about the need to develop the productive forces or industrialization, and so on and so forth. We'll get further into those things.
Okay. So I have some notes on here. He's a disgusting Britbonger. I have that. So I noticed on your last live you got restricted for clowning English people.
Yeah, TikTok does not like Angloid.
They really, really hate that. So I wonder if speaking about the disgusting innate qualities of English people why are English people a protected class when they don't protect any other class?
Yeah, no, I was shocked, but
Yeah, I think you, me, and Nico have all gotten restrictions on TikTok for clowning on British people.
Yeah, mine was for harassment and bullying, though. Nico got hate speech.
Yeah. No, I've definitely gotten, well, it says because the rationale for a temporary restriction is usually hate speech or, violent rhetoric. And it's, usually when you're just describing what British people are like. They're like, whoa, whoa, buddy. Whoa. Why are you, we understand, but, don't be so accurate. So I have here, he's a degenerate Angloid, like probably his father Spontex. I have that on here. We have English. We have probably has sick degenerate fantasies about the Queen. That's probably a safe bet, right? He's objectively and ontologically incorrect about stuff because he spells things with S's instead of the much more proper Z. Because you have a whole letter of the fucking alphabet. How are you going to foist this alphabet on us with the English language and then not utilize it correctly? Utilize. Did you hear the way I pronounce that with the Z? Better.
Yeah, utilize. Yeah.
Utilize. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. There's much more utility to Z. Ergo, utilize.
Yeah, Z's are based. We should be using Z's more. They're cool.
Yeah. He probably sits down to pee, of course. I think that is the polite English way to do it. Some other ancillary things, and these are more speculative in nature, that he doesn't rinse soap off of dishes and he just lets it dry on there. Have you seen that? Did you see that TikTok?
Yeah, that's a British thing, right?
That is a British thing. And that, do you think that maybe they have lead in their soap and that is a cumulative thing going on there?
I have no idea why anyone would ever fucking do that.
That's bizarre. No, they literally wash the dishes, and then while they're sudsy, they put them up to dry, and the suds dry on the dish. And they literally will argue that that is the better way to do it. Like, it never,
I don't see how.
They don't watch TV shows. They didn't learn just from like absorbing media. Those are like social cues that you get from like cartoons.
Do they do that when they wash their hands or bodies in the shower? Do they just put the soap on and then walk out?
British people, I don't even think that they can use toilet paper because their plumbing, they have like these millimeter thick pipes because they're all like, they've had the same piping and the same plumbing from like medieval times. So I think in modern day England, I think they're just going back to just throwing their waste out the window.
That's fucking wild.
Yeah, it's just a complete degenerate island. Everything about it is backwards and perverse. And meanwhile, I don't understand how communizers and leftcoms are even going to fix their faces to say anything about us, about being revisionist, when they have a whole ass royal family to fucking worry about.
Yeah.
Literally, Prince Andrew pedophilia going on.
Oh, yeah. No, I know. And you know, the annoying thing is that when I was looking through Khanifesto's TikTok, the majority of his TikToks, like, I swear to God, like, it's funny because I've seen people say that MLs have leftcom derangement syndrome, but leftcoms have ML derangement syndrome.
It's their only content.
Oh, dude, yeah.
Yeah, that's all they have. Yeah, we can sit there. We have other content. We can sit there and glaze China. We have infinite amounts of content. China does something, we celebrate, we pop champagne, yay China. When they do something, that's it. There's never been a leftcom victory ever.
Yeah, it's just crazy to me too, because like, even if they disagree with us and think that we're wrong, it's weird to hate communists, even if, say, we are wrong. It's weird to hate a communist for being wrong more than you hate the bourgeoisie. Like, I'm not a huge Hoxha fan. Tito did a bunch of shit that pisses me off, and I would put them above any capitalist in the fucking world.
And leftcom. Titoists and Hoxhaists, I'm like neutral to them at best, but like leftcoms are actively wreckers.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, that's the difference. We have a final speculative item here. Do you think he fancies a jacket potato with tuna?
With tuna?
With tuna.
Probably.
Yeah, probably most likely, huh?
That old geezer loves tuna.
Yeah, they like now. What do you think about that? What do you think about the potato and tuna combo? Do you think that is sort of like part of a caloric and or nutritional deficiency that would lead to someone like sort of ascribing or taking up leftcom ideology? Do you think this is born out of nutrition and lack thereof?
I think it's just born out of the fact that they don't have fucking taste buds. Like, Jesus Christ, put some fucking cheese, bacon, and chives on that shit.
Yeah. Now, the fact that they have poor taste, is that why they're anti-China? Because all the flavorful dishes and colorful arrays of food? Yeah.
Yeah.
That could be. Okay, so we have that. So I think that's a good intro to English people and leftcoms, leftcom derivatives of them. The whole communizer thing, still don't understand it. Literally it's just anarchism with extra steps. I don't even understand what it is they're doing. It's like the most ideological, the most idealistic thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, it's anarchists who don't want to admit that they're fucking anarchists.
They're basically, they're like ancoms. right?
Yeah. I mean, there are some differences. See, Valkyr sent me some articles on communization theory, and I tried to read multiple articles, and honestly, I'd get like halfway through, and I'm like, this is garbage.
Honestly,
I can't fucking read
the
this.
only thing I know and I can discern a communizer is when, like, literally, and this is literally true, is when they're low-key calling for color revolution in socialist states. That is the only way I can tell, because leftcoms, they don't even necessarily do that. But with communizers, every single one of them, because it's popularized by Spontex, who's a Euro supremacist liberal. I don't even think he's an anarchist. I think he's literally a liberal, right? He's a white supremacist, Euro supremacist, regime change, stochastic agitprop. That is all he does, is literally call for regime change in developing and non-Marxist social experiments like Burkina Faso and Iran. Iraq, anywhere the Ba'ath Party's ever been. He's like low-key fomenting hate and color revolution there.
Like, bro, why don't you do something about your own fucking government?
Literally. It seems like they take up the side of Israel whenever they can, oddly enough.
Yeah, I mean, they'll claim the Israeli working class because they don't have any conception of labor aristocracy or the particular contradictions that come with settler capitalist states rather than non-settler capitalist states.
Oh, is that because they're goofy. British?
It very well might be.
They've been indoctrinated to think that like colonialism is good and the settlers there are valid, so they have been sort of proactively preempted from seeing how disgusting Israel is.
Yeah, I mean, well, Britain was occupying Palestine first, right? Britain also helped invent Israel, so it wouldn't shock me.
However, but you'd think that they would be more hardwired because the term terrorism was literally invented to describe Israeli action after the bombing of the Prince David Hotel that was targeting British diplomats who had just finished giving Israel weapons.
Really? I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, no, and the Queen till her dying day referred to Israelis as terrorists.
Interesting.
Because she oversaw all that. She was like, no, these people, you can't trust them. Like, literally.
Broken clock is right twice a day, right?
Yeah. Okay, so let's look. So we have this, what is this first TikTok we're going to look at here?
Yeah, the first one is kind of goofy. It's basically, it actually is quite shocking because this whole thing is just basically him saying he doesn't care about anything that's not, abolishing wage labor, class, and commodity production, right?
And that includes things that are going to inevitably lead to the situation's dynamics and conclusions that he wants.
Yeah, well, yeah. So like he makes it very clear in the video. He's basically like, I don't give a fuck about developing the productive forces or pulling people out of poverty.
Okay, let's check this out.
It's bad.
Take for other communists. I don't care that China lifted millions out of poverty. I don't care that the USSR industrialized from a feudal nation very quickly. I don't care about nation-state building. The only thing I care about is the production of communism and the escalation of class struggle internationally. Have we abolished wage labor? Have we abolished the proletarian condition? Have we abolished class? Have we abolished the fact that there's a separation from producers from production? Have we abolished commodity production and the law of value? I don't care about this liberal capitalist nation-state building framework. I don't care about socialism in one country and vanguardism if this is all it leads us to do. Why don't we just become social democrats that measure productivity rates, that measure innovations, that measure the quality of life for workers? Why don't we all go live in a Scandinavian country if this is the end goal for communism? And even if it's not the end goal, why do we care about this? How will any of this lead to communism and the production of it? I'm so sick and tired of acting as if Marxism-Leninism is just not the advocacy for social democracy. There's fundamentally zero difference between their project and a Scandinavian country other than the fact that socialist experiments draped a red flag over their state and called it a workers' one. That's essentially it. Just because your party says that it is communist doesn't mean that it's going to do that in the future. I really hate to break it to you.
just an asinine, naive take. First of all, yes, it would be better if you were a social democrat. You're literally an apolitical Brit. Yes, it would be better if England got reduced from, if one worker bee got migrated from imperial ass England to a social democrat state. Yes, that would be a net benefit. And like, it's literally, I don't care. Abolish work, abolish wage labor, abolish commodity production. Again, this is, we're retreading the same thing, but you like, if you do not build up your productive forces, your country will be overran by imperial warlords. If you don't do that, if you don't militarize, the U.S. will come and invade you. I don't know how, like, he literally comes from a warlike former superpower. What does he mean? Why are these countries all trying to defend themselves and raise their production value? That's so weird coming from a fucking Brit bonger. Brother, we're all still recovering from your fucking nefarious influence.
Yeah. I look, so like the thing is if he doesn't care about the development of the productive forces, then he doesn't care about like the material preconditions for abolishing class society. Like you have to develop your productive forces if you're a backward society. How do you completely abolish all of the things that he hates if you're underdeveloped and you're encircled by imperialist countries and you do not have the productive capacity to do so? It's impossible.
Let's take a different tact on this, because I literally don't understand. What does a leftcom want? Okay, so they have a bloodless revolution. They have they encourage everyone, and they do these they make a astounding argument, and everyone decides to put down their weapons and not ever interfere with their socialist project, right? That's number one. That's what it presupposes, right?
Yeah.
They're not industrializing, they're not militarizing, they're not building up their productive forces, they're not doing anything. So he's talking about the abolition of wage labor, of the value form, the getting rid of work, right?
Yeah, and immediately at one stroke,
right?
No transitional phase.
No, but how does that work? So in a leftcom society, so there's no money.
Yeah, well, I mean, right, even Marx, which again, through practice, because practice has a fucking unity with theory, we've come to understand that it hasn't worked out exactly like Marx thought. But even, Marx thought that there would be a transitional period between capitalism and the first phase of communism. And by the time you reach the first phase of communism, what we call socialism, money would no longer exist.
They don't care about that. No.
Vouchers.
They're not Marxist in that way. They don't care about the first phase. They don't care about stagism. They don't care about anything else like that.
They do. They have an idealized version in their heads
they
of
want
what
it right
that
now.
transitional
If
period
you are not
is.
abolishing, Cappy, you're not listening to me. They have not abolished wages. So therefore, it's not communist. So, like, honestly, what they want is to come to a okay, so let's not, I'm trying to throw extras on it. So they managed to get some land, and they somehow convinced no one to invade them. And they somehow, like these Britbongers think that they can somehow defend it, or maybe that's off the table, or they're just LARPing and imagining, well, once everyone in the world doesn't become violent, then I'm going to be able to do what I want, like a bullied kid who can't move. Once everyone stops being mean, I'll be able to build the sandcastle without people stomping on it. Is that what they're talking about? And in that situation, are they talking about how would a leftcom society work? Like, do people are they just assigned tasks and they go and do those for no money because there's no wages, out of a social contract that everyone is relegated to do X amount of tasks? And then they live in a house for free, and they go to the store, and there's no overweight people that eat more than other people, so it's equitable. Like, how does that work? Is there like a credit system for food, or how do they make sure that some people who have a propensity for overconsumption or hoarding, do they have countervailing things for that? Is it a credit system? How does it work?
Well, I'm not sure. It's never really explained. However, I do think a lot of the things you just mentioned are feasible after generations
No,
of having...
no, right now. No, like
It's
what do
not
they want?
I mean, it's
no,
not...
but what does it look like right now? This is what I'm saying. They're not happy until this happens and no comment.
Well, that's why I can't answer the question, because
what do they want right now? What do they want right now? What does their society look like?
I don't know. It's something that only exists in an ideal world.
Okay. So there's no wage, there's no labor, there's no commodity production, so there's no trade with other countries.
No, because they're jumping to the end goal.
Well, hold on.
At one stroke.
On. So they draw a circle around a border, and there's no commodity production, ergo no trade. They can't trade with any other countries, so they only have goods and services that are derivative of their own resource extraction, which is done for no cost.
Well, no, because they think that the revolution will be international.
Okay.
And simultaneous, right? It will be the whole proletariat of the whole world united. That's why they don't believe in socialism in one country. They think that it will be the international proletariat at once, simultaneously rising up and overthrowing capitalism.
Is there no leftcom manifesto? There's no worldview. There's no, like, this is how it's going to do for as much as they dogmatically read Marx. Like, to be honest, it honestly seems like they're hyper-focused. They do seem to be hyper-focused on the end goal and not the iterative steps on how he saw it unfolding.
Well, that's the thing. So people like me and you consider the whole process from the beginning of the proletarian revolution to the end goal as the movement of communism.
Yes, I consider trying to make a baby fucking. It starts when you start fucking, yeah. Yeah, like, hey, babe, we should have a baby. And then you start having sex, and they go, oh, stupid. They think that having a baby is having sex. It's like, brother, that's the end result. This is how it starts. We have to wine and dine a little bit. I got to take her out for a date and maybe, get a couple cocktails in us and fucking light some candles. We have to set the stage for this thing to happen.
Well, like this video kind of, right? Nothing counts if it's not full communism.
Yeah, and he just doesn't care. He doesn't care. And if we were going to do that, why don't we be a social democrat? Okay, are you a social democrat? No. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, like that beginning part pissed me off because, he doesn't care about poverty reduction, development, industrialization. Like maybe he just takes those things for granted because he's from an advanced economy. But those of us who, grew up in poverty or live in poverty,
like in New Jersey,
yeah, absolutely. I grew up with a single mother in a impoverished area on food stamps. Like, seeing
the mean
poverty
streets
reduction,
of Jersey, not posh Britain, not posh London town with fancy kings and queens around in their gilded carriages.
Yeah, but you know how enticing that is to impoverished people? When I tell my mom about China and I show her 800 million people have been pulled out of extreme poverty in the last 40 years, her eyes light up, right? Yeah. It's very enticing. And to people from underdeveloped countries that have no productive capacity, of course industrialization and developing the productive forces is enticing. They're underdeveloped.
And I think that, like, for instance, even like that one, what draws to mind is that you've read that article, I'm sure, the Black Bolshevik, or whatever.
Book, Harry Haywood.
I read an article necessarily. It may have been developed or a series of his writings. Harry Haywood, and he was talking about why they're not trots. And it was because he's like, we were fucking inspired by the USSR. Actually existing socialism is the best agitprop towards it being a working model. Like, I don't understand.
Absolutely.
Watching China spend, $2 trillion or whatever it was, $1 trillion on a continental-wide or a full China-wide a bullet train system that could fly from Chicago to or that could travel from Chicago to Atlanta effectively in a half hour's time, where even if you and I got first class tickets on a plane without stops, that's a 2.5 hour trip. China can now do that in a half hour for what I imagine is very affordable daily transit rates.
Yeah, it makes people's lives better. That's why leftcoms have lost the plot. They forgot why they became Marxists in the first place. They don't care about people.
They're just chasing an ideal. They're like literally, and
Yeah.
I hate that these words get passed around so much, but this is a true idealist.
No, absolutely, it legitimately is. And like it, like what you mentioned this before though, that like, right, and Marx says this himself, that communism is not like a static ideal we impress on reality, right? That is to say that like we have to conform our ideals, our ideology to material reality, right? We have to subjugate ourselves to our material conditions. We cannot just force something onto material reality. That this, right, the whole point of Marxism is to analyze your conditions and build something that works within those conditions to try and change the world. It's a methodology and a form of analysis that we can use in order to create a new world.
Do you think he honestly thinks that China is not closer to implementing communism than all of the leftcoms put together in England? Does he think that they are no closer to, like, honestly, to implementing like the end goals or the lower form of communism?
Yeah, no, I do believe that they're just bourgeois. It's not communism. But the thing is too is that like, whereas like Maoists will consider like the Mao era to at least be communist, most communizers and leftcoms don't even think it was then. China has been a capitalist state since 1949, according to them.
Bizarre. Okay, what else do we have here? That's just a very, very asinine video. Let's see what the number 2.
Anarchists are more communist than MLs because they reject the nation state outright.
Okay. It's all going to be more the same, huh?
There's a lot of Marxist-Leninists bashing anarchists on this app, and let me just say one thing. I'm not an anarchist personally. I don't agree with a lot of anarchists that are platformists necessarily. But let me just say one thing. On the disagreement on China or nation states, a lot of these anarchists are fucking correct. They're more communist than some of you Marxists out here. I'm not gonna lie. So every time there's a communist creator in here that's an MO that's talking about fuck anarchists, but it's very rich to me for them to essentially criticize anarchists that want to abolish the nation state, whilst as Marxists wanting to affirm the nation state. I don't know, man. Some of these anarchists are more communist than some of you MLs, and I don't think that's controversial.
It's extremely controversial. It's asinine. You're an anarchist.
Yeah.
You're literally an anarchist. That's why you...
No, yeah.
That's what it is. It's like, can't we just get to the utopian part where everybody just high-fives each other and no one gets paid a wage? Anarchists are great. They abolish everything. Isn't that fantastic? Yeah, and then they leave themselves wholly open to new waves of warlords. Like, what are you talking about?
I was saying that this is a mischaracterization because I feel like Khanifesto acts like Marxist-Leninists' ultimate, like absolute idea is a society with a state, but it's not. We all understand that the state did not always exist and it will not always exist, but we ask the question, right? How do you get to that point under real historical conditions? How do we actually go from a society with a state to a stateless one, right? And what we have found is that through practice is that you have to build a really strong state in order to eventually get rid of the state. It's a contradiction, but that's what makes it dialectical, right? Of course it's a contradiction. And I don't think he can fathom that.
I honestly, I think that this is honestly bizarre, because it is an idea that can only come from a land ruled by a decadent, inbred, pedophile family that just got done colonizing the world, just safe in their tiny, reclusive echo chamber.
Yeah.
It really only can, and that just ignores the cries of the proletariat and admonishes all of them forming Marxist-Leninist parties towards seizing power to stop the avarice of Westoid countries like the one where this guy is running his mouth from.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And did he say, he said in this like twice, abolishing the state, right? He did say that. Marx never ever said the state could be abolished. He never said that, because from Marx up through Stalin, up through Mao and Deng, every communist believed in the withering away of the state, that once the conditions that brought the state into being were done away with, that the state would wither away. In fact, I have a very short quote from Engels. In Socialism, Utopian and Scientific, he said, I quote, "The state is not abolished, it dies out." So you're not even, right, like he's not even true to Marxism. If he was a true leftcom and dogmatist, he should understand that, right?
But that's not very often the case. Like, fundamentalists are way more severe than like Jesus would have been. They're way more. They're more hateful. They're more stringent. They're more reductive. They're more warlike. They're more evil. A lot of similarly are leftcom similar. They're like falsely dogmatic, seemingly dogmatic fundamentalists who fundamentally misunderstand the quote unquote wisdom of their prophet. Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I should mention, Khanifesto criticizes Engels all the time. He thinks Engels had a poor understanding of dialectics. A lot of leftcoms don't like Engels, and I think it's because Engels has some fire shit to say, and it doesn't conform to the mischaracterization that they want to put onto Marx. It debunks their mischaracterizations, and so they have to go, no, Engels he didn't understand. Yeah, I don't know. So does that mean, since Engels sort of like co-wrote Capital, basically, right? At the end, he sort of conformed it and like structurized it towards the end, right? The end, the volumes. Does that mean they reject aspects of Capital?
I'm not sure if they do that, but I know that Khanifesto rejects anti-Düring, which is a fantastic work on dialectical materialism by Engels. A lot of them reject on authority. There are a few other Engels works that
is the video in where he says that Marx didn't even tell the people who talk about being dialectical materialism are fundamentally wrong, because Marx only used it to analyze capital specifically. He only used it for economic analysis.
What, did Khanifesto say that?
Yeah. There's another video of Khanifesto.
I have not seen that one.
Yeah, do you want me to find it real quick? It's pretty obnoxious.
You can if you want.
It's one of these. 328, 324. I don't care. We'll just skip to. Okay, let's go to the third video. Yeah, I can't find it, but yeah, no, he definitely posted that. Okay, this third one. If MLs existed in 1871, they would have called Marx an ultra-left petit bourgeois labor aristocrat for criticizing the Paris Commune. Okay.
Oh yeah.
So
this one's says, words on a screen.
So
yeah.
Hey Marx, where is your revolution? Where you abolish? This is, first of all, my take on this. Yeah, fuck Marx. Marx was wrong about a lot of shit. I like Lenin and Stalin and Mao and Xi Jinping way more. I like Deng way more than Marx. They actually did stuff.
You just said Marx was a prophet earlier.
Well, okay. Compared to Jesus.
I know that it's...
it's like this. It's like Jesus and then Marx over him, and then every leader of an actual existing social state is above Marx. Because they actually applied stuff in actual material conditions and not just we're doing world building.
Yes, the practice is fucking important. Ultimately, though, right, that bottom part is a jab at people like us, because, we'll hear some shit being talked about China and we'll be like, yo, you leftcoms have never had a revolution. Like, who the fuck are you to criticize, right? So that's why he's saying that. But ultimately, I thought this TikTok was goofy, because no, we wouldn't call Marx a leftcom armchair labor aristocrat for critiquing the Paris Commune, because Marx was correct to critique it. But what I think is funny is that the critique that Marx had is definitely something I don't think Khanifesto would agree with, because Marx and Engels critiqued the Paris Commune for not utilizing centralization and authority enough.
Right. Yeah, so, it's asinine on the face of it. And not only that, Marx supported almost all forms of socialist revolutions, even if he felt they were utopian.
He would critique it, but yes, He even with like the peasant rebels in Russia, the Narodniks, he exchanged letters with them and talked very highly of them. He critiqued them where he thought they were wrong, but he didn't just reject them.
He wasn't a wrecker.
No, not at all. But also, I wanted to point out this video, at least to me, it's a false equivalence because it's assuming that Marx's critique of the commune is, equals modern leftcom critiques of socialist states, which it doesn't.
Like, yeah, no. If anything, Marx mirrors what a modern ML would say about failed. Should have got nukes. Should have developed more. Should have fucking you fucked up. You like too many anarchists talking in your ear had you all fucked up.
Yes, no, they turn Marx into the exact type of person that Marx would have criticized ruthlessly.
And do you think how much of this again? Like I have yet to see a leftcom above age 30. Spontex may be the oldest one I've seen, and he's like, I'm pretty sure Spontex is just a liberal. Like at the end of the day, all he does is a cry bully who just calls out, and whenever the State Department targets a country, he joins the chorus and does stochastic regime change agitprop on his.
Yeah.
Let me also chime in and why the Burkinabe people suck. No one pulled your string. Shut up, Angloid. You don't need to fucking every time. Oh, yes, Hillary Clinton. No, I don't agree with her rationale, but I do agree. Gaddafi is a problem. He would have been there singing the praises of everybody deposing the Ba'ath Party, Pan-Africanism. He would have, if the state took action against the Marxist, the Black Panther Party, if he had been alive, he would have cheered them on. Yes, I think that some of their racial arguments are actually problematic. He would have cheered on the dissolution of every Marxist-Leninist group.
Well, some of these people do cheer on. You know what I mean?
No, he does. That's what I'm saying. No, but if he had been around then, we would have seen what a fucking sucker he is. But in the modern day context, because the legend building for Abraham Traore is in the process. So we see how he's reacting in real time to actually existing socialist projects or non-Marxist socialist projects. We see how he's low-key raising the gain and the volume on stochastic regime change things for non-utopian socialist project, i.e. anybody trying to actually implement anything in the absence of a worldwide synchronicity, mass global change of heart along the global collective subconscious. Right? He's waiting for some magical philosophical revolution to happen. In the absence of that, anything that is done is perverse.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, that's so it's not even just Khanifesto, it's all of them. If it's not full communism now, right? This sort of weird absolutist position, then it doesn't matter. Who cares about it?
And I have never really I've never heard them. They seem reactionary in that it's only negative against MLs. I've never heard them positively state what a communist country would look like. And they say refer to Marx, and then I go read Marx, and I'm like, buddy, fucking Engels and Marx. They say. First of all, if you don't have one yet, get a fucking bourgeoisie democracy. Like, I don't understand. If you read Principles, he's like, first of all, if you don't even have one of those yet, depose the feudalists and get a bourgeois democracy. Like, how do leftcoms even answer that part?
Yeah, I mean,
so like we go back to you have to have sex to have a baby.
Yes.
Right? So if communists implement what would otherwise be described as a bourgeois democracy towards the stated end goal and are working towards hitting the lower phases or the preliminary forms of communism and the lower phase of communism, is that not the process of communism unfurling? That's like saying taking a step is not a trip to the store, but it's like, brother, I'm pointed at the store, my head's looking at it, and I'm walking in that direction. I guarantee you I'm going to end up there.
Yes, absolutely. And if we're viewing communism as a real historical movement, right, an objective, an actual, like, trying to think of a way to phrase it. If communism is a historical process that exists objectively, right, then what we are seeing, right, from 1917, the first successful proletarian revolution and worker state, through this whole history of the communist movement, that is the real movement. There is no, like, when these people talk about, like someone told me the other day, no, economic determinism, whatever, the development of the productive forces is counterintuitive to the quote unquote real movement of communism. It's like, what is your real movement? Does it exist in real life, in material reality, or does your real movement exist in your fucking head only?
Yeah, it's a hypothetical situation relegated to some future generation.
Yeah, it's so bizarre.
So then why the imperative to wreck movements now? If what you're talking about is utopian and they will admit themselves, maybe hundreds, like, do they recognize that it's like hundreds of years away? Or it leads me to believe that these people are communists in the way that, like, someone, like, literally an anarchist commune is. What they want is, but they say they don't want that, but they do, right? They seem to be promoting the idea of some breakaway state firewalling itself away from the rest of the world, like the Forbidden City, and then coming, like, only having a sort of non-wage productive forces that are made only for need and not for commodity function, where I don't even know, so it's literally a non-starter.
It's severed from practice. It's theory for the sake of theory. It's an intellectual exercise. Theory is a unity with practice. If you sever theory from practice, it becomes meaningless.
Like, I'm vacillating in myself because it seems like they make arguments as if their leftcom utopian idea of what communism is applicable or available right now. But then when you hold their feet to the fire, they say, oh, well, no, many things have to change and the hearts and minds of the world have to change and we have to raise consciousness and do all that, which is fine. If you're going to do that, do that. But for me, it seems like he's, like, denouncing social democracy, but it seems like the citizenry that grew up in a social democracy is much more likely to be not anti-communist. They're much more open to those ideas. So even as an iterative step towards agitprop, towards raising the global consciousness, wouldn't actually existing socialist states telling people that, yes, you are communist and we believe in communism, be good for international communism?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? How do you change people's hearts and minds? By changing their material conditions.
Yeah, like, literally. But again, this guy is safe, secure, and young, naive, safe in the imperial core, and, like, honestly confused. That is the thing. I do feel like someone like him almost feels like, I feel like there's an imminence. There's, like, an emergency into what he's saying where he's almost talking as if a country could do this tomorrow.
They think that there could be, they think that we produce enough for everybody. So if the international proletariat would rise up tomorrow, they do think that they could have it, because, again, in their heads, it's like, it's completely severed from the geopolitical situation that exists, the internal conditions of various countries around the world. Like, it's severed from everything that actually matters. It's completely abstracted from material reality.
Okay, do we want to... We're at 55 minutes. Do we want to listen to the fourth one?
The fourth one, I would have so much to say on. It's really up to you.
Fuck it. No, that's it. All right, I'm tired. Who should we scour? Who should we skewer next time, Cappy? Do you have anybody in mind for the next target?
No, I don't.
We'll have to figure one out. All right, everybody, that's it. Cappy, do you have anything else you want to say to these fucking disgusting dish soap laden jacket potato with tuna eating Brit bongers that might be listening to this?
Grow up. Give a fuck about things that aren't the end goal, and stop being British.
Yeah, stop being British.
But,
start doing push-ups and start learning Mandarin. I don't know what to tell you. Just fuck off, weirdo.
Other than that, I do want to thank Jess one more time for helping me out to get this stuff. It's gonna be awesome. So I appreciate that. And I guess, like normal, don't talk to cops and don't do anything Cappy wouldn't do.
That's it, everybody. Good night.